Okay, so welcome to this video about grammar. I am Bruno and we will be talking about the present perfect simple and the present perfect continuous. So please, let's get started. We are on page 23 of our student's book. Before we do exercise number 1, I would like to quickly review the forms of the present perfect simple and the present perfect continuous. So let's get started. For the present perfect simple, we have the subject, have or has, and past participle. If you don't remember what past participle is, it's for an irregular verb. It's the third column of the table. So the first column is infinitive, second is past simple, and third column is past participle in the case of an irregular verb. And if it's a regular verb, you just add ed to the verb. Of course, we have some rules to do that. So sometimes you can just add d, sometimes you have to double the last consonant and add ed, sometimes you have to delete y and add ied, and sometimes you add ed. So that depends. So for example, I've known her for a few weeks. So have and known is the past participle of know. In the negative, we have subject, haven't or hasn't plus past participle. For example, I haven't seen her in ages. Please remember that seen is the past participle of the verb see. In questions we have or has, subject, and the past participle. For example, has Mauricio moved to Nice already? Moved is a regular verb, and moved is the past of move. Okay, that was the case for the present perfect simple. Now let's have a look at the present perfect continuous. Let's see. In the affirmative, we have subject, have or has, been, and the verb plus ing. An example: he's been going out with my sister. In the negative, subject, haven't or hasn't, been, plus verb plus ing. I haven't been trying to impress her. And for questions, we have or has, subject, been, and the verb plus ing. Example: how long have you been going out? So notice that for the present perfect continuous, we are always going to have been. Been is present in all of the forms: affirmative, negative, and questions. And it is continuous. If it is continuous, it's because the verb takes the ing form. That is the continuous part. So on the left side, we have a picture of a woman painting her bedroom. And on the other side, we have a picture of the same woman, maybe some time after, but now her bedroom is yellow. It was green in the past, but now it's yellow. Let's read the first sentence. I've been painting my bedroom. A question: is this present perfect simple or present perfect continuous? Yes, that's present perfect continuous. Now, on the other side we have I've painted my bedroom, and this is naturally the present perfect simple. So what's the difference? Let's see. When I say I've been painting my bedroom, the focus is on the activity. It doesn't matter, it's not important if the activity was finished or not. Well, in this case, it was finished. but it's not important. The focus is on the activity. Now, I've painted my bedroom. The focus is on the result of the activity. And this is very important. It is a completed and finished action. Okay, now that we have some knowledge about the continuous and simple forms of the present perfect, let's do exercise number 1. Complete the table with these example sentences A to C from Ruth's story. Sentence 1. We've been together for a year now. B. We've been trying to live a normal life. And C. We've decided to move away from our hometown. Before we have a look at the table, let's see verb form. Present perfect continuous, perfect simple, and perfect simple. From sentences A, B, or C, which sentence is in the present perfect continuous? Yeah, that would be sentence B. Okay, so let's read. The present perfect continuous can be used to describe a continued or repeated action that started in the past and is still happening now. So when I say we've been trying to live a normal life, this started in the past and now we are still trying to live a normal life. Started in the past and has been happening until the present. Okay, so now we have two present perfect simples, A and C. Let's analyze. Which one of the sentences, A or C, describes a state that has started in the past and continues now? Good. That would be letter A. So we've been together for a year now. It's a state. Yes, to be is a state. It's not an action. You cannot think of an action. Be is a stative verb. And this started in the past and continues now. Okay. Now we're left with C. C, the present perfect simple, also describes a finished action that happened sometime in the past, and you don't say when. In this case, we've decided to move away from our hometown. This happened at some time in the past, it's finished, and we don't know when. Yes, that's the idea. So some keywords. The present perfect continuous, continued or repeated action. The present perfect simple can be for a state, that continues now, that is still true now. And the present perfect simple can also be used for a finished action that happened sometime in the past, but you don't know when. Okay? When we think about the two situations we saw in the slides, we can say that the present perfect continuous would be the situation on the left. I've been painting my bedroom because this is an action that is repeated. I paint one part and then I keep on painting. I paint the other part, maybe the other wall. It's repeated, yeah, and it started in the past, yeah, and it can be happening now or not. That's not important. Okay, so this would be the situation on the left. Good. And the situation on the right was I've painted my bedroom, and this would be number 3 on the right. I've painted my bedroom. This is something that happened in the past. You don't know when, but it's finished. That's the difference. As you might remember, we have two types of verbs. We have dynamic and stative verbs. And stative verbs. So it is very common to use the present perfect continuous with dynamic verbs. In this example here, I've been trying to live a normal life. Yeah? And for the second situation, I state that started in the past. This is clearly stative. Stative verbs are used in this case. For example, we've been together. Be is a very stative verb. But when you use the present perfect simple to talk about a finished action, you can use both dynamic and stative verbs here. Both are possible. So for this, use dynamic verbs, only dynamic verbs normally. For this, use stative verbs only. And for this use, we commonly have dynamic and stative verbs. In this case, let us see, we've decided. Decide is a stative, but it could also have this sentence with a dynamic verb. For example, I've painted. Yeah. An example with a stative verb would be this one. We've decided to move away. And an example with a dynamic verb would be I've painted my bedroom. Paint is dynamic, you can see the action happening, but decide is a mental verb. It's in your mind, so it's stative. Good? Alright. So now, moving on to exercise number 2. In exercise number 2, you have to underline the correct verb form, and I want to know what the verb describes in each case. You can use the table in exercise 1 to answer. So please pause the video, do the exercise number 2, and after that play it again so that we can check. Okay, so let's check. Let's see. For A, I've been learning English for 3 years. This would be number 1. This is a continued and repeated action that started in the past, and in this case, it is true in the present. So I've been learning it repetitive. It repeats itself. Okay. Now letter B. I've had the same hairstyle since I was a teenager. In this case, it's not a finished action, it is a state. I've had. Have can be stative or dynamic, but in this case, it is stative. So this is number 2. It's a state that started in the past and continues now. Now C. My sister has been going out with the same guy since university. This is present perfect continuous, and this is number 1. Good. Now D. I've been to London 3 times. In this case, I've been to London 3 times. This is a finished action. It happened in the past. We don't know when, and the focus is the result. It's not the time. We don't focus on the time, so this is clearly number 3. Okay, now E. I've known my best friend for over 10 years. This is the present perfect simple, and here we have a state because know is a verb of the mind and it is dative. Okay, now F. I've stopped using online dating sites. They don't work. Well, in this case, it is present perfect simple, and this is a finished action. So, yeah, good. So, are any of the sentences true for you? Please write the ones that are true so that we can talk about them in our class. Very good. So now let's have a look at exercise number 3. In this exercise, you have to make questions using the present perfect simple or continuous. Two very important question words to use with the present perfect simple or continuous are how long, to ask about the duration, or how many times, to ask about the how many times you did something. So please pause the video and write the questions in the present perfect simple or continuous, and only after you finish, play the video again so that we can check it together. Okay, so let's check. A. Have you ever cried at the cinema? Now let's see. B. How many times have you traveled by air? Okay. Now C. Have you ever read the same book twice? Now D. How long have you had your watch? E. How many times have you been to the USA? F. How long have you been going to the same dentist? G. Have you ever owned a pet? Okay, notice that only letter F was in the present perfect continuous, and this is because it is a repeated action in the past. How long have you been going to the same dentist? This gives us an idea of something that repeats. For example, I started going in January, then I came back in February, then in March, then in April. So it repeats itself. So that's why using the present perfect continuous in this question is a good idea. In the other questions, we either had an idea of a finished action. For example, how many times have you traveled by air? This is finished. Or we had an idea of a state. Okay. For example, have you ever owned a pet? If you remember, the verb own is a verb of possession. Yeah, so verbs of possession are commonly stative. So this would be a state. Letter G would be a state, and letter B would be a finished action. Okay? But only letter F is a continued and repeated action that started in the past and might still be happening now. Okay? Okay, so that was all for this video. I hope you could learn something from me today. So thank you so much, and I really look forward to seeing you on the next video. Bye bye.